You know the story, right? We've all seen the movie. The super brilliant 20-something founder in a hoodie who, changes the world from a dorm room. It's a great story. But what if I told you that story is mostly a myth? Well, today we're going to tear that whole stereotype apart, look at what the real data says, and uncover the one trait that truly separates the successful from everyone else.
I mean, this image is just everywhere. Think about the social network, right? The whole story of Facebook, where a bunch of college kids become billionaires before they're even 28. Or, hey, the founder of Instagram. He sold his company for $1 billion when he was 29. The media just eats these stories up and amplifies them because, let's face it, they're amazing stories. But this constant focus, it really paints a skewed picture of what it actually takes.
And that leads us right into the first and maybe the biggest myth we really need to bust. This whole idea that entrepreneurship is just a young person's game.
It's so easy to see all those stories and start wondering, did I miss my chance? Is it too late for me to start something big? You might actually think your window of opportunity has slammed shut, but the real data, it paints a completely different picture.
Okay, so just look at this number, 95%. What does that make you think of? Maybe the percentage of startups that fail, or the share of venture capital that goes to Silicon Valley? The real answer is probably going to surprise you.
That's right. The overwhelming majority, a full 95% of successful founders, are over the age of 30. So what's wild here is that this completely flips the script on its head. That young genius isn't the rule. They are the super rare, media-friendly exception.
And this just drives the point home perfectly. Even the poster child for young success, Mark Zuckerberg, was a total anomaly. The second he celebrated his 30th birthday, the number of self-made billionaires under that age dropped to 0. He was it, the only one. Just let that sink in for a minute.
Okay, so if age isn't the big deciding factor, what about just raw talent? This brings us to our second big myth, the idea that you have to be born some kind of once-in-a-generation genius to actually make it.
You hear it all the time, right? That entrepreneurship is in your DNA, or that you need a huge bank account just to get started, or that it all comes down to one lucky break. But the reality, it's way more grounded. So many of the most successful founders spent years in the trenches as regular employees. A lot of them bootstrapped their way to success with hardly any money. And almost all of them will tell you that luck, that's something you make for yourself.
So here's the thing, and this is so crucial. Success isn't just handed to you because you have some innate gift. No, it's forged through qualities that anybody can develop. It's about perseverance, that grit to keep pushing forward when everyone else would have quit. It's about an absolutely relentless work ethic. And it's about having the confidence to sell a vision that to most people just sounds completely crazy. These are the things that really matter.
And when we talk about perseverance, it is not just some buzzword. Take Rovio, the company that made Angry Birds. Before they created that multi-billion-dollar hit, they had released 24 other apps. 24 complete failures. They didn't have a stroke of genius on their first try. They had the resilience to fail 24 times and still show up to build number 25.
Okay, so the data's telling us it's not about being 22, and the Angry Birds story shows it's not about having some magical first idea. So if it's not youth, and it's not innate talent, what is the single biggest predictor of entrepreneurial success?
The answer, based on years of observation and data, really comes down to one very specific mindset. Let's break it down. It all boils down to this: risk tolerance. And listen, this isn't about being reckless. It's about being comfortable with uncertainty. Are you the kind of person who can pour your heart, your soul, everything you have into a project, knowing full well that there's a very, very high chance it just won't work out? That's the core of it.
And there's that number again, 95%. Only this time, it represents something, a lot more sobering.
This is the stat that every founder knows in their bones. 95% of all startups fail. And to make that feel real, just picture 20 new companies lined up side by side. 19 of them are not going to survive. Just knowing that, you have to be a certain kind of person to even want to step into that arena.
And this quote just captures the essence of the game perfectly. It is all about high stakes. Imagine I offered you a deal. You can win $100 tomorrow by betting $10 today. But there's a 95% chance you'll lose that $10. The person who hears those odds and says, okay, that's worth it, that's a risk-tolerant person.
So let's compare that to the opposite mindset, risk-averse. Risk-averse people, they try to minimize and avoid risk at all costs. They're the ones who build diversified portfolios and buy tons of insurance because they're worried something might go wrong. Entrepreneurs? They're usually the opposite. They're optimistic, they don't worry as much, and they are okay taking on that risk because they truly believe they can bounce back from anything.
So it's really time we redefine our whole image of the entrepreneur. It's not about your age or some mythic genius or just sitting around waiting for a lucky break. It's about your fundamental approach to uncertainty and the very, very real possibility of failure.
Ultimately, what all this really tells us is that the most important question isn't about your resume or your credentials or your age. It's not about who you are, but what you are willing to put on the line for a shot at that huge outsized gain. So the real question is, what are you willing to bet on?